as Courtney and I always discuss, these difficult deals can tend to draw out emotion. And in this conversation, Courtney, Joe, and I talk about how we utilize the DISC assessment to make sure that we're managing the situations to lower the emotional level of a transaction, solve problems, solve the problem with facts and solutions, and then deliver that with emotion so that clients can understand that we still have empathy for the situation, but we also come to the table with good ideas on how to solve the problem and move the transaction forward. This business truly is about helping other people. And Courtney and I, when we talk about difficult transactions, sometimes it gets into the weeds on a specific type of deal, but sometimes we talk with people, and the real estate market is dealing with a lot of emotional people in a high stakes game of buying and selling real estate. And so,
And it could be clients or it can be other professionals in the
100%.
industry, right? Like none of us are immune to the emotions of a transaction.
Yeah, and we had a conversation earlier about building in with another person about how we can they build in processes that helps not just solve problems but avoid problems whenever they get started. And so these conversations can kind of go in a lot of different directions. But at the end of the day, when you're dealing with people's emotions and you're dealing with different personalities in the business, it can be difficult sometimes. And we utilize the DISC assessment a lot within our organization to help mitigate some of those problems. Like we kind of figure out what people's tendencies are, what behavioral style they have, and how they like to be communicated with. So hopefully we can avoid those issues as they come. So when it comes to a real estate transaction and the emotions and the different people involved, how do you deal with that?
As best as possible.
Yeah.
So you brought up the DISC. I'm a 100D. I recently took it, so it's accurate. I'm a 100D, and then my I is very high, and then my S and C, I'm like 6 and 7. The way I probably present extremely emotional up front, and I try not to do that at first. I probably, like, if I get, especially with you're dealing with other people in it too, because I mean they'll rise it up. So how I do it is I just take a second, probably go in my car, listen to crazy rap music, and then present it.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to take a time first.
Yeah.
Something that'll ground you. When you got asked that question, you did something. And this is what I presume you do. So you laughed. I appreciate the comic relief you bring into situations, like that part, because that can help. It's the things that ground you. So going in and listening to certain music, having a moment, collecting yourself, like all that stuff, super important.
Right.
Because it's a level. So like I've been playing pickleball, and so you don't have to, but you generally play with a partner. And I tell them all the time, like, especially if we start losing, and like, especially by like a lot, I'm like, slow them down to play our game. Because otherwise, like, they're running the game, like, and you're basically at the mercy of them. When it's difficult, you're like, let me slow down to my speed. This is now me in control versus being controlled.
Yeah, you call it communication leadership, right? And it's all about how you present yourself in a way that you're in control of your own emotions and feelings, so that you don't let the situation overtake how you feel and what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah. I think a lot of people that have high D, high I personalities like you and I do, we tend to jump to trying to fix the problem, and I think of this more at home than in real estate, because after over years of doing this, I know how to diffuse situations pretty well. I'm still figuring that out at my house with my kids. And so, like when I get into a situation where I'm trying to take control over it, a high D, they lead with an emotion of anger, to where other people may feel like you're coming across as your anger, but you're really trying to show your assertiveness to take control of the situation and direct it. And, when you're working with other people, especially other professionals, you have to be careful about how direct you are when you come across somebody.
Absolutely.
And, I feel as though in order for you to avoid that type of situation, I tell my team we have to do all the little things right throughout the process, so that whenever the situation shows up, we can show that we've done all the things that we were supposed to in order to avoid that problem. And then whenever you have an emotional situation with a buyer or seller or agent, I always tell people, I'm never going to tell you no, but I'm going to tell you all the ways to solve that problem. You might not like the solution. You may be the one that says no, but I'm always going to present you with a solution. And so that way I'm itching that scratch scratching that itch that I have that always want to solve a problem in my direct way and trying to take the emotion out of it and saying, look, these are the answers to your question. Go solve it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that Lauren always says is that you make a decision with facts and you take that action with emotion. And so you can't take the emotion out of real estate because it is an emotional thing to do. Business and life are emotional.
People are emotional.
Yeah, people are emotional. You can't try to pull that out because then you can't relate to people in that way. But you have to make decisions based on facts and then take action with those emotions. So when we have an employee that we might have to have a hard conversation with, we present the facts and then we come with empathy, right? We bring some emotion to the table so that they know that we're not just trying to be as rigid and not being, a human, take the human element out of it. So I think all that goes into having to solve some of these real estate issues that come up whenever you're dealing with a lot of personalities. Because it's not just the agents involved and then the lender. There's buyers and sellers, and there could be at least two of them at least on each side. So
I know you and I have talked through a handful of difficult situations that you've come across. I mean, real estate's not easy, right? So when you come across, whether it's difficult situations, whether it's within the transaction, whether it's with a client or something like that, what apart from grounding yourself, what are some saying, okay, let me control my emotions, things like that, come from a baseline. What else? What are some of the other things that you do?
I try to be funny. I try to add some sort of comedic relief.
Yeah.
To be completely honest with you both, and that's probably a little bit unprofessional, but I mean,
well, no, it's helpful.
Absolutely. Right? So I like to make people laugh, and then okay, let's laugh it off. Then let's figure it out.
Yeah, the point of the real estate transaction is not for it to always be rigid and direct. Like having a good, enjoyable time is important
for sure.
So I don't think that that's a problem as long as again everybody's being professional about it. Creating a sense of enjoyment is important, but also think that it's important with that mentality to know the right type of personality that you should work with. Because if you get certain even like professions, you can kind of gauge their behavioral style from a disc standpoint based on their profession, right? You go CPA or a lawyer, they're probably going to be a little bit more dry and direct and a little more detail oriented. So you got to make sure that you're giving and presenting them with the right information. If you have somebody who's more of a salesperson like we are, they're probably not going to want to know all the details, and they're going to want the process to be a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah.
So you can add a little bit more of that element into it. And so you have to, there's a process and a method, even within that playing the emotional game of real estate. If you understand yourself enough, right? That's the disc part of it that you're doing. And also understand other people's behavioral styles and practical ways to kind of find those things, figure out what they are, then you can be a conversational leader and make sure that you're helping drive the transaction in the right direction, even if things can get a little tense.
Absolutely.
Well, even the comedy part can reframe the situation. Guys,
for sure.
I know this is serious, but it's not that serious.
Right.
Like, we're going to survive this, right? And
Absolutely.
and I think that's huge. I mean, because some people, they're like, oh my God, the world is ending. Like, hey, so, what color casket do you want?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, right? Like, there's a level there that if you can help reframe it, that also can kind of.
Yeah.
For sure.
Again, leadership, right? You're leading the conversation. You're leading, and you're saying, "Hey, guys, we got this."
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of it is just trying to make myself laugh before coming up with a with a very rigid front. Mm-hmm. So I'll go off on a story if that's okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I was in probably a very difficult negotiation. Luckily, it didn't work out, thank God. But there was an agent. She was much older than me. And she's been in the business for 32 years. And she made sure that I knew.
I was about to say, she probably said that the very first time she told you.
She made sure I knew. She goes, well, I've been in the business for 32 years, and this is how it's going to be. And I was like, oh. I wanted to.
Your ID came out?
Right. So then I stopped, and I was like, well, I've been in it for 12 months, and this is how it's been. And she's not like that. I thought it was hilarious. I loved it. But thank God we did not go into a transaction together because it would have been horrible.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, and I think that's huge because it's like, someone once told me there's no such thing as an impossible deal, only impossible people. Mm-hmm. And I guess part of my job is I try to be the least impossible person to deal with. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I have my moments, and I'm sure my spouse would say the same, but like the reality there is that's a huge issue, is that there's sometimes people who make the transaction what it doesn't need to be.
Right.
And that's the hard part. We all, I mean, you know, we're not living on an island by ourselves, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
one
again,
of many.
And if you go back to being a high D, I mean, the beauty of what I think that somebody of that behavioral style brings to the table, and like some people talk about focusing on your weaknesses. We keep referencing a lot of other conversations, and I prefer to lean into what my strong suit is. I have other people that are way better at my weaknesses, and I'm gonna let them handle it. But when it comes to being able to solve a problem, being a high D, I'll get when somebody's frustrated or upset or worried about something. It's like, look, this is going to be okay. We're going to find a solution to the problem. If we can put the emotion behind us and let's focus on finding a solution. I can't tell you. Off the top of my head, I cannot think of a transaction that didn't ultimately work itself out at the end of the day. If everybody just stopped worrying and fretting and just saying, how are we going to solve this problem, right? Whether that's all contributing to financially fixing the problem, being creative on how we solve a problem, connecting people with the right people to help solve the problem.
Yeah.
There's always a way if we can slow down, take the emotion out of it, and then come with some solutions.
Well, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've told someone, I've got the tools to help you, but I'm not going to fight you to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things. I'm like, it's.
I had that exact conversation with somebody too.
It's my favorite phrase to say to someone who starts getting irrational.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not getting foreclosed on, buddy. Like, I'm going to sleep just fine tonight.
I'm here for you. I'm willing to, and look, after you've done this long enough, and I mean, I guess I'm blessed to the point where I can say these types of things, but you know, I'm willing to sacrifice the income that I would make on a deal to make a transaction happen because I know the long-term benefit of the relationship that I'm going to be forming.
Sure.
Yeah.
So like,
And that's a decision to make.
of course,
right?
it
Like,
is.
that's a
And, yeah, I
choice.
don't do it all the time, and I don't take that
But
lightly.
you can pull that lever when
100%.
needed.
Exactly. And when I tell people that, if people don't work with me enough or haven't worked with me a bunch, they think that they don't see that they don't know how to be genuine maybe, or they don't know if I'm being serious. And I to the point where we have a system and process where all of our transactions kind of flow through, and 99% of them just flow, and I don't have to deal with them. But like that 1% that sticks out that I take 20 phone calls in 2 days on, those are the ones that I'm directly trying to help, and I can make that decision on that scenario. And I had this conversation with a lender I was working with the other day. I'm like, hey, you need to tell these people that if they want me to help, I'm here to help. But you need to stop fighting me on it because I got 1,000 other things that I could go do. I want to help this transaction, but you got to let me help you.
Absolutely.
And that's the part of taking the emotion out of it. Like, take a step back, take a deep breath, go listen to some music, make a little comic relief. Let's now come back to the table and let's find a solution to this problem.
Before we transition, what rap artist, what type of rap music were you
Oh
listening to?
gosh, Big X the Plug recently.
Big X the
Hey,
Plug.
you know the largest? Have you heard the largest?
I have never heard of Big X the Plug. That is a new one for me.
He is.
I haven't. I'm also really bad with pop culture. I was
Yes.
really hoping about Biggie Smalls or something. But
Yeah,
like, okay,
no, it's very current.
Or
It's
Lil
very
Wayne
current.
or whatever.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
definitely Lil Wayne's my guy. I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
He's good too. He's good too.
It's okay.
Big
Everyone
X
has
Plug
their
recently.
style.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's just real recent stuff. Kendrick Lamar.
Sure.
Always right.
Say Drake.
Yeah. I've
Okay, got the smile in. Good, good, good.
yes.
Have
Big X the
they
Plug,
sang a
great.
song with Florida Georgia Line yet?
No, that's
That's
Okay,
just Nelly.
I don't think they're a thing anymore. By the way,
Maybe not.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Okay.
Florida and Georgia has no line
tell
anymore.
me you barely listen to rap without telling me you barely listen to rap.
More of a country guy.